This isn't heaven. It's the Iowa edition of the Pick Six podcast. Welcome in, everybody, with Sam McKewon and Tom Shatel. I'm Evan Bland with the Omaha World-Herald. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone who's listening. Uh, it's been a season, and this is hopefully a chance for you guys to enjoy some food, enjoy some family, and enjoy some football this weekend. And so that's what we're going to talk about quite a bit today. How are you guys doing on this holiday week? And is there gratitude flowing from your guys' hearts now that the regular season's here on the home stretch?
Yeah, um, very, very thankful for everything I have in life and for all my readers out there, and to write for the best audience in college football. So, which enables us to do podcasts that the people watch every week. So yeah, and thankful for another game, and thankful for a bowl game this year.
Yeah, I'm thankful to be able to tell another story, Evan, and that story being that Nebraska goes to a postseason, and we don't have to hear about another long season without a bowl game, and we don't have to hear about the struggles ahead, and kind of like how Nebraska beat Iowa in 2022, and we didn't have to talk about that all the time anymore. I think this is very similar. What we want to do is tell the story of ultimately the program writ large, and that is competing for more than just, making a bowl. So they have an opportunity to actually take another step on Friday and potentially beat Iowa and get into a pretty dang good bowl. As Tom has written and as you wrote today, like they could actually, because of a quirk in the way that the college football playoff is going to set up with four teams from the Big Ten, they could end up in a pretty dang good bowl, playing a pretty dang good team. So I think there's a real opportunity here for Nebraska if they can win on Friday. Big opportunity if they can win.
So this is Iowa week, and there's plenty to talk about there. But I think it would behoove us to at least reflect back on the weekend that was when Nebraska lays 44 on Wisconsin. And the word that keeps coming back to me when I think about that game Saturday night, Tom, is cathartic. Like the students came on, were celebrating. You could see the relief on the seniors and on the coaches. Like as you have now a little space between that game and where we are now, what was the meaning of breaking through in the way that they did, getting back to the postseason, beating Wisconsin? What can that do? What does that mean for the program?
I don't know. I think we'll find out Friday night what the impact is. I think the immediate impact is everybody exhaled and they felt good about. I mean, the fact that they qualified for a bowl by beating Wisconsin, and they did it in a emphatic fashion. It was, I don't know if it was dominant, but it was very clean. They played a good game. They played good football to beat the team that they could never beat. And yeah, that was that took a serious weight off everybody's shoulders. So um, I don't know. I still haven't. After the game, I almost couldn't process it. It was like, for years we're going, why can't they beat these guys? Wisconsin's good, but they're not great. Why can't they beat them? Why do they always implode? Um, why do they always stumble? And for once they didn't. And I mean, it was fun to watch. But what does it mean? I think we'll see this Friday night a little bit, and going forward. But there's a lot more confidence. I think you feel a different vibe now. Um, it's going to see people smiling. You know, we're watching Holgerson on the sideline laughing and high fiving. You just see that in Nebraska. But it's pretty serious. And so this is, I think it was good for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with what Tom's saying. I'll add two things. One, off-season wise, just big picture, it does mean that they can tell a different story in the off-season to recruits. And the 26 class, they're going to want some guys. And they landed a guy last night in CJ Brona from Windermere, Florida, who looks like a pretty good player, and 6'3" corner, maybe he's a safety. But it does give you a little bit different story to tell in the offseason to a kid that, might be a 5-star lineman who's wondering. And hey, look what we did. We took this step. Now come help us take the next step. There's that. And then I think the other thing that came out of it is, hey, let's Nebraska, I think, can sign Dana Holgerson as soon as possible, whatever that looks like, provided that he wants to come here. And let's be honest, like, there can be a dual reality there where he signs with Nebraska, but if a head coaching job comes up, he takes that. Like, it's not one of these mutually exclusive things. But get this guy signed up as the OC and go from there. He sure does sound like a guy on Tuesday who wouldn't mind being here for a year before plunging back into the head coaching pool. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe that's his head is on, I want to go run a program again. He just sure did seem comfortable being the OC and sounding like he would like to do that. So we'll see where things take him.
Yeah, the Holgerson question is interesting because you listen to him on Tuesday, and I think you can kind of pick out things to support whatever argument that you want to say. Like if you kind of think, he's going to move on, then you could point to him saying, I don't want to answer the question about my ambitions. If you think he's going to stay, you can point to what he said about having as much fun as he's had. And to throw in a quick Nebraska baseball reference, his story sort of reminds me of Rob Childress as a guy who was a head coach for a long time, kind of got chewed up and spit out on the other end, and just kind of went back to his roots and was like, hey, I actually just like the coaching part of this thing, and I don't have to deal with fundraising and NIL and all the other stuff. I can call plays. And so, I mean, it's such an unknown. He's not thinking about it pretty clearly. He said all he knows is he's taking Saturday off. But it's going to be, what are his ambitions? What opportunities come his way? And clearly Nebraska wants him to be there. What do you guys think? So say Holgerson moves on for whatever reason. What lessons do you think Matt Rule takes from this experience as he goes out and looks to find that next offensive coordinator, whenever that ends up being?
Well, I'm not sure, what's going to happen, but there aren't going to be a lot of jobs open right now. There are going to be some open. Next week will be the week when, Saturday, Sunday, Monday we'll start getting. Carolina's already open, but a guy like Holgerson, he's not really old, but he's he's had 2 head coaching jobs. He's probably going to get one more, and so he has to be very, very selective. He has to find the one that's good for him, where he's going to last. He's not going to get fired again. They've got NIL. His offense is going to fit the school and the program's history and the league, and I don't think he's going to be in a hurry. And you heard him yesterday talking about how he really enjoyed not being a head coach last. He's kind of I don't have the responsibility of the timeouts, managing the game, getting the team ready, all that stuff. He's just calling plays and having fun. So I don't think I think he's going to stay at least a year. And I think Dylan Royal is part of that. But I'm writing a column. I've already written it. I just got to send it as soon as we're done here.
Look forward to reading it.
About the Dana and Dylan show. I mean, this could be fun to watch. What might they do with an off season together, where they're watching film and hanging out all hours of the night in the film room? What might they do with a chance to go into the portal and be the chief recruiters for an offense. It's they might keep each other around here a little bit, and I think that's exciting. But to answer your question, if he were to go, um, I don't know. I mean, the lessons are whoever the quarterback wants. The quarterback is going to be in on whoever they would hire, the OC. That's the world we live in. And you know, I think it would be, the run game. We finally got the run game. You know, before Holgerson showed up, they couldn't do the run game like that. Now all of a sudden the O line is suddenly blocking better. Receivers are blocking. Um, I guess the lesson is go find somebody like Holgerson. Because apparently the guys on the staff can't get the players to do that. So
Huh.
I don't understand that. So um, and sometimes a new voice, a fresh voice helps. But he's had an impact. And I know a year ago they didn't have the depth to really bench people. Now they do. So that's part of it. But they're executing now. So, I don't know, Evan. I think that's a good question. I think he's going to be here next year.
I think the lesson you can take, whether he's here or not, is just that the college football offense isn't necessarily the NFL. NFL defenses and college defenses aren't the same. And I would actually use the comparison piece to college baseball, Evan. There's certain things you can do in college baseball and putting the ball in play that is successful because the guys that you're hitting the ball to are not major league third basemen and shortstops. You put the ball in play in college baseball, and some good things are going to happen that won't happen in the major leagues. It's the same in college football. And I think sometimes in the first 20 some games of the Marcus Satterfield era, which is now done, as a play caller, I think there was a thought process of like, we really need to come up with really, really good plays. Execution is important, but we got to scheme this thing up because we got to get guys open and we got to make plays against these good defenses. And I think the one thing that Holgerson has done in a very short amount of time is create space, create one-on-one space matchups in space, throw to guy, let him make a play, and get the ball out of Dylan Raiola's hands. And those are things that other coaches can replicate. One of the things that I thought was really interesting that Holgerson said on Tuesday was that when he got here, he said, we're probably playing guys in too many spots. And then he went directly to the receivers. And he mentioned that Ja'Cory Barney was playing various receiver spots instead of just playing in the slot, which is where he should be playing all the time. Like, I don't, like he's Steve Smith or something and he's got to play outside. It doesn't even matter. But the reality is, like, there's things that Holgerson just has a natural understanding of, and they're not like they're not novel, but they are to him. Like the thing about he's like, well, Matt Rule added this, and Donovan Raiola added this, and Satterfield added this. And he's like, but there's one sheet, and if it ain't on the sheet, I'm not going to call it. And if I don't understand it, they ain't going to understand it. And basically, what he's saying in that moment is like, if we can't practice it well, we're not calling it, and it's getting off the sheet, and we got to stop worrying so much about how the size of our playbook and whether we have an answer all the time. Sometimes you just have to play football and just do those things. In college basketball, there's a thing called the motion offense. Tom knows all about this, as do you. Or really what you're doing is you're just playing basketball. You're not necessarily running a lot of set plays, and that's conceptual. And I think some of what the air raid or what Holgerson does is to some degree conceptual. It's like, we're going to put this guy over here and we're going to do this over here. We're going to see if it works. And that's a riskier style sometimes, but I think it's effective for Nebraska. It's effective. And I think they've had success so far running that system. That, I think, is the lesson. I do think Holgerson will stay if Nebraska does the right things around that and the right job doesn't come open. I don't even know what the right job would be. I don't know enough about him to know exactly what that would look like. But does he really want to be a head coach again? Does he really want to be a head coach again? Like, I don't know. It's a whole different job, and it's not an easy job. And Matt Rule doesn't seem like it's an easy job, even though I think he does a pretty good job at it.
Okay, so let's apply this conversation to Iowa on Friday. So the Hawkeyes have a better defense than Wisconsin at this point. Wisconsin was banged up last week. Iowa kind of is too, but they've been very opportunistic, very steady this year. What part of Nebraska's team do you guys trust more on Friday? Do you trust the defense to limit the runs and what Caleb Johnson's going to do? Or do you trust more that the offense will build off of what we've seen the last game and a half and maybe be a different, sort of offense than what we saw previously in the year?
Oh boy, I haven't seen all of Iowa's games, but they obviously have been playing better at home. Offense plays a lot better at home. They score a lot of points at home. I think Nebraska's offense is kind of getting going. It's end of the year. Obviously, it's going to end, but I probably I don't know if I trust their offense, but I think they've got a better chance in this game to have more offense than the defense. The defense has its moments, but they've been so up and down. The second half of the year, I mean, certainly Ohio State they were very good. But other times they didn't. USC, UCLA, they haven't made the right play at the right time to get off the field. They've given up too many long drives. Last week they played well at times, but then there were times when they didn't tackle. The tackling was poor. Um, so I don't know that I don't trust the defense, but I probably think the offense will um, have a little bit more a chance of a good game. But that's a good question.
I'll break it down a little bit, Evan, just for people who are interested in matchups and things like that. So Iowa leads the Big Ten in rushes of 20 yards or more. They have 25. Ohio State is second with 17. So that gives you a sense of what Iowa's trying to do. Iowa is not afraid to have 8 or 9 guys in the box because Iowa feels like if they can get those guys in the box and then they break one tackle, and Caleb Johnson has done this many times this season, he's gone. So the more people you put in the box, Bob Diaco used to describe this as trying to fly a plane at 30,000 feet with a little crack in the window. And he's a strange guy, but he's right exactly about that. He was describing trying to defend Wisconsin's offense. Iowa does some of what Wisconsin does now. And so one of the challenges is you have to be right in all of your spots. You could give up 0, 0, 0, 32. And then you give up 32, and then they come back with a throw and they do some things over the top. And so one of the challenges that Nebraska has to be is they just have to be super consistent. And then they have to decide whether they want to be the defense that gives up 5, 5, 7, 5, 5, 5, 5, hold in the red zone, or they want to be the defense that gives up 0, 0, 30, and then they got to find a way to make sure they don't give up the 32-yard. So I think on the defensive side of the ball, they have to decide how they want to defend some of the power runs and some of the zone runs. They've done different things over the years. They weren't great last year. They were just okay. They were just okay for much of the Frost era. They weren't great against Iowa's run game, just average at best. On the flip side of the coin, you know what Iowa's probably going to do, and the kinds of coverages they're going to play, and you really do need to try to hit something over the top. If you're going to go beat Iowa, you either need to have a mobile quarterback who's getting out on the edge and changing the geometry of things, which Nebraska doesn't really have, or you're gonna have to go over the top, or you're gonna have to matriculate the ball down the field with incredible efficiency, because Iowa's going to force you to do all of those things. The teams that have beaten Iowa this year, Ohio State has the ability to go over the top. Michigan State has the mobile quarterback. UCLA has matriculated the ball down the field, and Iowa State beat Iowa on a day when Iowa rushed for like 300 yards by hitting 2 long passes. So you have to hit something over the top. You got to break that mold a little bit. And if you're able to back those safeties up a little and maybe change their coverage strategy, then you can start to do some of the smaller things. What Mark Whipple did 2 years ago against Iowa was interesting. On the first couple drives of the game, he threw those really quick passes. out to the sides. He was trying to bring everybody up to tackle Trey Palmer. And then at just the right time, he got Palmer in a route that he liked, and Trey Palmer can outrun anybody. And he did. He outran everybody, and they got that touchdown, and that loosened everything up. Can Nebraska get one over the top? I don't know. Is it Jalen Lloyd? They did that last year with Chuba Purdy. You've got to find a way to get Iowa over the top, and you do that by getting one of their safeties down inside and then going over the top. And it's really challenging. It's a great schematic game, and I think Nebraska will have a plan, but can they execute their plan better than Iowa? I don't know.
I mean, it kind of feels like of those three categories that you're listing, the matriculating downfield might be Nebraska's best bet to score points. And we saw that a little bit against Wisconsin, right? I mean, they got Emmett Johnson going in the screen game somewhat and up the middle. And we saw them be diverse with their tight end usage.
You're not going to score a lot of points that way. You're not going to have a lot of possessions doing that. You're going to have about 8 possessions. So you better score on half of them, and you better plan on scoring 21, because I was going to score 17 to 21 too. So that's the challenge with that strategy. I think trying to go over the top is actually a good thing to try. I think you have to try to break the mold of their defense. If you don't do that, you are in for a day. You better be ready to win 13 to 10, because that might be all you get. And your defense better be ready to be really good. And although we're not talking about this, Evan, I think it's going to be a season. It's going to be an off season of change for the Husker defense. Tony White's going to be there, I think, unless he wants a head coaching job at the G5 level. But things it's going to be a completely different thing next year. Kirk Ferentz went on and on about Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker. This is the end for those guys. It's the last game they're going to play outside of a bowl game. Nebraska does not have an immediate replacement for either one of them. They're either going to have to get them out of the portal and pay them $1 million or whatever, or they are going to have to get Keona Davis better and Riley Van Poppel better in a hurry. So this defense is going to go through an offseason of incredible change. That's just my hunch. Whole bunch of different guys and a whole bunch of young guys pressed into new spots where they have to perform right away. And I'll be curious to see how that goes. This is the last game of the first 2 years of Tony White. Like this, something else it's going to be different next year. It's either going to be faster and more aggressive and more athletic, or it's going to be, we went to the portal and we got giant guys. I just don't know what they plan on doing.
So what do you guys think's at stake when you zoom out with this game? We talked just now about some of the matchups within the game, but like Nebraska's at 6 wins, Iowa's at 7 wins. There's no Big Ten West to contend for. Nebraska got the monkey off its back a week ago. Is this simply about bowl position jockeying and playing in the ReliaQuest in Tampa? Is this just sort of one of those internal motivating sort of games where it's about the rivalry and very little else? Like, what do you guys feel like is kind of on the line here in this Black Friday game?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how much. I'm around Nebraska fans, and I don't sense it's a giant game for them. I think they wanted to go to the bowl. They wanted to beat Wisconsin. They like beating Iowa, but which they don't do very often. So one of those trophies, nobody knows what it looks like. Although they got it 2 years ago. This is the future of college football. There's going to be a certain number of teams, 16, 17 teams maybe, who are in a contention for the college football playoff. If you're not one of those teams, this is your reality. You're playing for some kind of a bowl, and you're trying to beat your rival, and that's all you got. So this is the reality. And that's okay. It beats the other reality where you're not going to a bowl. And you have a losing record. So I don't know what's at stake. I just know people are in a better mood. They're excited about Nebraska football right now, and they want to win Friday night. They think Iowa will probably win, but I think they're just in a good mood about going to a bowl.
I'm going to use an analogy that is somewhat inapt. but I'm going to use it anyway because I think that the circumstances are different now. And that's the important distinction here. And in 2005, and Tom was at this game, Nebraska beat Kansas State, whatever, 25-24, 27-25 to clinch a bowl. And, Bill Callahan might have gotten fired if they don't win that game, but they win it. Then they go out to Colorado and they win 30-3. And that was the restore the order game, as people remember. Then they go and win, then they go beat Michigan in a bowl game. Now, at that time, when Nebraska accomplished all those things, Steve Peterson was the AD, and there was a lot of people who didn't like him and were mad at him. And Bill Callahan was the head coach, and there was a lot of things that and Tom knows this better than I do. I just don't think Bill Callahan was nearly the whatever you want to call him, the communicator and the relationship builder that Matt Rule is. If Nebraska was able to go beat Iowa by 1 or 2 or whatever, and then they were able to go win a bowl game, they would finish 8-5. And I think you have an AD in Troy Dannon, and you have a head coach in Matt Rule in place that would really be able to capitalize on that momentum in ways that Callahan and Peterson were not because of the kind of people they were. And although, again, the Callahan era didn't end up the way that anybody wanted it to, or maybe it did end up the way that some people wanted it to, I think this could be a catapult. But of course, again, that means not just beating Iowa, but then going to the bowl game. Let's say you're at the ReliaQuest Bowl and you're playing Tennessee and beating Tennessee. Like this is one of those things where you go on a run, and that run speaks volumes about what you do the following year. And they have a chance. And what changes the conversation, including from 05, Evan, is the portal. If you go out and you snag those 2 wins, just remember the portal doesn't close until mid-January. So like a lot of the guys that you're going to be pursuing, you may not get until January 7th or January 10th. Going out and doing something really special in the next month or so could really set a tone for the kind of player you're able to attract. And they need players. I know they're going to lose a bunch of guys through the portal, and Tom's talked about this. They do need some better players at certain spots, including on defense.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, you think about even in the last cycle, the caliber of recruit that Nebraska was able to get on campus or to consider them, and guys that are still considering them. And they have, Nebraska has all the things in place around the football, but they just haven't had the winning. Imagine what the staff could do if they had more tangible results to point to, for sure. Absolutely.
Well, they've only had, in my opinion, and you can disagree, I think they've only had the other things in the last 2 years. We don't need to rehash the Scott Frost era, but Scott Frost was given the opportunity to build a lot of that infrastructure relationally, and he just didn't do it very well. And I don't think Mike Riley was going to be given that opportunity. And of course, we remember the Bo Pelini he burned his own bridges. Like, this is the 11th anniversary of his, if you want to fire me, go ahead. Like maybe one of my favorite Tom Shatel leads to a column. Like it was, they just haven't had the person who could build all these relationships before they had Rule. And I'm not saying that to, kiss his rear end. It's just objectively true. So they have a chance, but they got to do the football right. They got to win on the field. Do you remember that lead, Tom?
I do. I don't remember where it came from, but I remember it.
It was something. That was a I just saw a man set himself on fire. Yeah. And he did. And he kept his job. He came this far from hitting a ref with his hat, and he kept his job.
Yeah, well, that was the power of the Board of Regents. The AD was going to fire him, and then all of a sudden he couldn't. And
there are pictures out there of Bo closing his eyes as he has no idea if he's going to hit the ref with his hat. He closed his eyes.
He basically dared the AD to fire him, and he didn't. But he didn't become more empowered because he got it the next year. But what a wild time! Yeah, that was yeah, wild days.
Yeah, the next year was we had to evaluate where Iowa was, and that stuck with Hawkeye fans for a number of years after that. Anyway,
it's still
as it should have. That was every Nebraska fan agreed with him, but you don't say that, and that was the thing. The reason why Nebraska didn't get the Big Ten and didn't understand what it took to win. You respect everybody. You show respect. It's all those years Osborne, said everybody's, this is the greatest opponent ever. It just there's a method to the madness, and that was Icor's feeling his oats, and he didn't feel oats very often, but
Nope.
he got it. He that day he was a superhero stomping around, and Kirk Ferentz was taking notes. he's I don't think he's still gotten over it. I don't think he's. They love beating Nebraska, so they'll be ready. They'll be ready.
Hindsight being 2020, what Icor should have done that day is just said aloud what people were thinking was, you know what, this guy actually did win quite a few games for us, but he did it in a way that didn't represent the state or the university in the way that we wanted, and we had to move on. But what he did instead is he couched it in like, well, we just don't win enough games and we're not competitive enough. And then he was asked about the Iowa win, and that's when he disparaged Iowa. When the reality is, Bo Pelini was let go because he couldn't handle himself, and he got in fights with people, he got in arguments with people all the time, and he was too difficult. So instead of just saying that, though, they turned it into, well, we got to play for championships, and that's not what it was. Do we want to talk volleyball or? Yeah.
We can. What do you take your pick, guys? Volleyball or basketball? Let's pick one of those before we go into picks. Choose your own adventure.
Well, we can do this with volleyball. Nebraska volleyball plays at Penn State, at Maryland. I expect them to beat both teams, including Penn State. But even if they don't beat Penn State, which is the number 4 team in the country, I think Nebraska will be a top 4 seed going into the NCAA tournament, and that's all Nebraska's asking for. They just want to be able to host 2 weekends worth of volleyball matches inside the Bob Devaney Sports Center. They have lost 1 NCAA tournament match in the Devaney, 1, I think, in the last 15 years. If they get a top 4 seed, which they will do, they will go to the Final Four. And we can talk about how great they are. We already know how great they are, but that's what's going to happen. And it doesn't matter whether Creighton is whatever. It doesn't make any difference where anyone else is. All Nebraska wants to do is go to the Final Four, and then they will let the chips fall where they may once they get in Louisville.
I would add to that. I thought the senior day stuff that they did really underscored the chemistry that team has. Like the talent's unbelievable, and we know how good they all are. But like to see Merritt Beeson crying after and Lexi Rodriguez, and like it's a group that for all the attention that they get, for all the the people that follow them around, like they do genuinely seem to care about each other and love each other. And I contrast that with some of those Nebraska teams from the mid 2000s that were really good. Like when I was in college, I covered the '05 team, and that was about as stacked from a talent perspective as it could possibly be. But there were some differing personalities, and it didn't always mesh completely. And that team made the national title game and came up short. This team feels like it's got the talent of those 2000 teams mixed with like the chemistry of that '08 team that pushed Penn State to the limit. And that's why you're just seeing just this dominant run that they're on. It's really remarkable to watch, especially in this era when there should be so much more parity across college sports. Nebraska seems to be bucking that trend in a big way this year.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Evan. Really good.
Yeah, I think that this team arguably is the most talented team they've ever had. But like the coach said, that they don't all they're missing is the national title, the trophy, and well, I'll be curious to see. Jordan Larson has the Olympic gold, but if this team wins the national title, would a Merritt Beeson or maybe even more so, Alexi Rodriguez stand next to Larson as the best player the program's had. I mean, they'll be right up there, and what they're trying to do is hard. It's you go to the national title game and you fall short, and then you vow to come back. And that you have to go through everything all over again. And last year they had the stadium game. It was kind of a thing was it kind of pushed them through. They beat number one Wisconsin at home. They had these little things that they weren't little, but they had these things that they kind of carried them through the year. This year they've had to kind of carry themselves through all this, and now they got to go to Penn State to win the Big Ten uh, on their own, and then go back to the Final Four. I mean, I almost wonder if they get to the Final Four if it'll be a relief, if it'll be okay. You know, now it's almost house money. Let's go win it. But it's amazing that you know, all back in whatever day you just basically had two teams that were better than everybody else. Now there's five or six or seven. And whoever goes to the Final Four, any of them will be able to win it. And so yeah, that's we almost take it for granted. We don't probably talk about them enough because they're just all they do is win.
Should we go to picks?
Yeah, let's go to picks. Okay, Evan came back to the pack a little bit last week. Tough week.
It's a rough one.
Rare one. We got a big Thanksgiving platter. So this is a full plate. There's 14 games. So this will be the busiest one we do until the bowl season. All right. I think Evan is up by 3 and on me and 5 on Tom, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, we ready? Memphis Tulane.
Tulane.
I'll take Tulane. One of the best mascots in college football.
For sure. Tulane for me as well. Minnesota, Wisconsin. I am taking Minnesota.
Ooh.
Minnesota.
I'll take the Badgers.
Wisconsin for Tom. The Egg Bowl. Mississippi State at Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
And Ole Miss for me too. Georgia Tech, the Ramblin' Wreck at Georgia.
Georgia.
Georgia for both of them. If this game were at Georgia Tech, I might take the Yellow Jackets, but it's not. Washington, Oregon. This is a real rivalry. These two teams do not like each other in Autzen Stadium.
If this were at Washington, I'd think about it, but Oregon.
Yeah. Ducks.
And Oregon for me as well. Notre Dame at USC. Notre Dame is a 7-point favorite.
I'll take Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'll take Notre Dame straight up. I don't know about the points, but
Notre Dame. Michigan, Ohio State. The game.
Ohio State. It's their time.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Ohio State, but I think Michigan covers.
Me too. Ohio State for me as well. Farmageddon. Kansas State, Iowa State. This is a hell of a football game.
I'm going to go K-State.
K-State for Tom.
It's the Big 12. Whoever knows week in and week out. I'm going to go Iowa State.
Iowa State for Evan. K-State for me. Tennessee at Vanderbilt. Nobody's talking about this game. It's a foregone conclusion that Tennessee's going to win, but it's not.
I'm going to go Vandy.
Vandy. What do you got, Evan?
I'm going to go Tennessee, but I kind of hope Tom's right. That'd be fun to see.
It would be. Vandy for me as well. Wow. I have no idea why nobody's talking about this game.
Wow.
I really don't, because Tennessee has not played that good of football this year, and I'm surprised that people think they're that good of a team. Vanderbilt is the same team that beat Alabama earlier this year, took Missouri to the final play of the game. South Carolina at Clemson. South Carolina still has a chance to make the playoff if they win this game convincingly. So does Clemson.
I'm going to go South Carolina.
South Carolina for Evan.
I'll go Clemson.
Clemson for Tom. Clemson for me. Oklahoma at LSU. Is this the new OU? What is this?
Just a new rivalry.
It would be a
They
good
don't play
rivalry.
Bedlam anymore.
Mm.
No, I think OU got up there for that game, and but LSU's too crazy. Who knows what you're going to get with them every week?
Oh,
I'll go LSU.
Evan,
Yeah, I'll go Tigers.
I'll go LSU as well. Texas at Texas A&M. Welcome
Oh
back.
boy, I'm going to go Aggies.
A&M for Tom.
Golly. Texas hasn't really beaten anyone this year. It's at Kyle
Mm.
Field. I'm going to go Aggies as well.
Yeah,
A&M for me as well.
Wow. Look at us.
That game you usually used to be on Thanksgiving night. Man, I loved watching it.
right.
Arkansas, Missouri.
MIZ.
ARK.
Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
I'm surprised by that. And Missouri for me as well. And finally, Nebraska, Iowa.
Iowa. Hawks.
Yeah, these have all been one-score games for the last 6 years. I think this is another one, but yeah, I'm going Iowa. Turnover margin and special teams and all the rest.
My desire to be right overwhelms my desire for what would be a much more interesting story. I'll pick Iowa as well. There we go.
My prediction also is that it would be very cold. And there will be hot dogs in the press box. I'll probably have a couple.
There will
They
be.
do
Then
bratwurst. They do bratwurst too, I think
there'll be a
sometimes.
long drive around midnight back to our hotel.
Can't
Oh
wait.
man.
Well, hey, it's been a long regular season. This one's going to come with a bowl game afterwards. So everyone who's listening, hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. You enjoy Black Friday. Find some time to be thankful for whatever else is going on in your life. We're thankful that you guys listen to us, and we're thankful to be talking about it every week. So for Sam and Tom, this is Evan. This is the Pick Six Podcast. Thanks for listening, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Here, here.